So our panel is about sustainability in relation to our customers, businesses, and our banks. You're looking at three people who, back in the day, were a police officer, a tugboat pilot, and a stowaway on a container ship. But today we're all bankers, yes?
Yes.
They didn't know I was saying that. And Jennifer from the corporate bank at HSBC and Faisal from Mashreq now both have very interesting careers. Jennifer, let me just jump in and start with you. So we know there's a growing focus on sustainable banking here in the region, in the UAE. What are some of the factors behind that? Is it a government push? Is it a competitive thing? Is it from customers? Is it from your own staff in your bank? What are the factors here?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. We're now at a time in the UAE where we've had really good strategic drivers and a combination of strategic drivers that have driven sustainability in the UAE. First, we have momentum and a vision from the top, with the last two COPs being held in the region, COP27 in Egypt and COP28 here last year, as well as the tone from the top with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed declaring this year the year of sustainability. We've had a vision and momentum to go off of. But second of all, it wasn't just talk for talk and show for show. We've had government-led initiatives that have been announced in the UAE that have spurred the need for capital, initiatives around renewable energy, electric vehicles, and many others, green buildings, and so on and so forth. These types of initiatives, this momentum, has also cascaded down to the corporate world, where we've had corporates announce their net zero targets, many of which have done so in the last few years, and are then now cascading those targets down to their supply chain. Not only we've had the regional momentum, obviously the global momentum and the global regulations have helped, accelerate the ambition of the UAE. And amongst the drivers is also obviously the banking driver. Banks have stepped up their sustainability ambitions in the region. HSBC has announced, its net zero targets and its financed emissions by 2050, as well as our sustainable finance targets as well. The regional banks have followed as well and have definitely stepped up their commitments. This doesn't just help put capital in the right places, it also helps the corporate world and the private sector understand the importance of sustainability.
Good. No, thank you very much for that. Could you follow that on then with saying something about the types of products and services? Are they new? Are they different? Are you just changing what you have?
Absolutely. So the types of products and services are very much now embedded in the industry. They're no longer sort of differentiated much between banks. Obviously, banks continue to compete and differentiate in their specific offerings, but sustainable finance is very well embedded within the banking sector. We have three types, largely, of sustainable finance products. At a high level, there's a use of proceeds products, where capital goes to either green or social initiatives. We have sustainability-linked products, where we tie capital to sustainability ambitions of corporates. And we have sustainable supply chain products that help corporates drive their suppliers' sustainability ambitions. All of these types of products can be used across the corporate's need or the borrower's need. And in particular, for climate and for sustainability, venture debt and climate tech finance is necessary. HSBC has committed $1 billion of early stage finance to climate tech companies. So climate tech is definitely a need that we have to continue to drive. But in addition to that, it will be infrastructure finance, project finance for long-term, large-scale projects. And that's also a commitment that HSBC is making. But beyond financial products and banking services, corporates have a need that starts before their lending or borrowing requirements. And that's a need to understand sustainability and embed that in their business models. So banks have a wider role to play. We have a role to play in partnering and helping our customers on their sustainability journey. At HSBC, we've been working with a partner called Diginex on a program called the Sustainable Business Accelerator Program. And I'm pleased to say that through that program, we're able to engage with corporates that haven't started yet on their sustainability journey, for them to do a materiality assessment, a carbon footprinting assessment, and really sort of get them going as understanding what the requirements are and the need that they have.
Jennifer, thank you very much for that. Let me take that thread then a bit further, Faisal, and turn to yourself. We know that a lot of companies and a lot of clients want to bring sustainability into their businesses, indeed into their lives. But and if we're really honest, there are a lot that aren't there yet. They're just not convinced, they're worried, they are natural skeptics, they think their business is too small. They just don't have feel they have the knowledge, the training. They don't know where to turn. What do you do about that? How do you address that group of people? How do you help them move?
It's a transformational journey. We need to acknowledge that the UAE visionary leadership highlighted the necessity of sustainable practices and moving away from fossil fuel based economy since early days. In 2015, during the World Government Summit, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed publicly stated that we need to celebrate the last barrel of oil. That statement set the trajectory and the roadmap for a future journey where the government created the first government retreat on discussing the move forward toward non-based oil economy and diversifying the economy. If we look at the sustainable investment products in 2023, they exceeded $7 trillion, an increase of more than 20% from the year before. And if we look at the sustainability broader approach, it's not the way forward or addressing well-being and prosperity, but it is also a value creation opportunity. Clean technology, as mentioned earlier, requires approximately $4.5 trillion in investment every year, tripling from the current state. If we look at the average $4.84 trillion per year between 24 and 23, that's the global energy transition cost. And if we look at also the sustainable development goals, we need another $4 trillion. So we are talking roughly, at least with a necessity to address sustainable finance requirement, averaging between 13 to 14 trillion dollars. That kind of number would not come from a government. It requires a financial partner, redefining public and private sector, and it will pave the way for a futuristic, sustainable, prosperous future for generations to come. If we wouldn't have those numbers handy, and we don't create an ecosystem, an effective ecosystem that function and enable, they have a reason for being skeptic. But with current subsidies evolving in an evolution towards a future engaging government-private partnership, what we call PPP 2.0, I believe we have a better, mature journey to achieve together.
Okay, thank you. So just a very quick follow-up, and then I have another more general question. Do you think the concern that this is, that moving into a sustainable business model will eat into profits, is it a profitability concern? And do people even hesitate to say that? And then I'll follow with my other more general question.
Well, definitely it's profitable, whether by a carrot or a stick.
Yeah.
And the stick is law number 11, for mitigating climate change effects in the UAE, signed by the president himself, with penalties ranging from 50,000 dirham to 2 million, possibly doubling if the same violation will reoccur. And the enforcement date is 30th May 2025. That's the stick. The carrot is, well, the subsidies around energy and other methods will start reducing. Government cannot, in any country in the world, cannot keep paying for the expenses of operation. Our operational emissions must be addressed and reduced. It will be profitable, definitely, if we look at the value of energy. Let's take aside the war in Ukraine, but the cost of energy globally is increasing. And if we will move towards sustainable energy options, the cost is reducing, and at the same time, the ROI is increasing. So that's a very good example of why we need to have sustainable energy, for example, as a model when we address sustainability requirement.
Thank you very much. And you started out, I think, sort of saying something around the rules side of this. So, we have lots of standards, we have lots of things developing internationally and locally, but something that not everyone knows about or may have heard about is called Law 11, if I have that right, and that's from this region or from the Emirates specifically. Can you say something about what that means and what it means for banks and who's part of that, who's involved?
Well, it will address all the companies in the UAE. The law was signed on the 28th of August. The awareness on it requires further development and capacity building. As a bank, I see it as an opportunity for us to evolve into a knowledge house where we will conduct and host several awareness campaigns with reputable organizations, whether government, semi-government, or international, to build capacity into the obligor, current or futuristic, because disclosing such requirement and preventing greenwashing, among other ESG washing scenarios and risk mitigation, requires capacity building, specifically in the SME sector. Yeah. And that's why we partnered with reputable organizations such as the United Nations Global Compact chapter in the UAE, hosting some events, and we are planning to conduct more. The definition of the definition of finance products and services will evolve to expand and extend to address such requirement.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to add anything to that point?
I completely agree. I mean, I think capacity building, awareness and understanding is absolutely necessary. Completely echo the point on SMEs and small, medium enterprises that need the help to get on this journey. And this is why we're here to support ultimately as banks. We're here to support an education and a transformation process, again, not through just banking services, but through collaborations and partnerships. And that's the only way that systemic real change can happen.
Yes, so you're both talking about partnerships. Sabrine from HSBC majored on partnership in her session earlier today as well. And I think that that's right. That's what I hear from other institutions. And when you go back to the finance that some of your customers need, it's the equivalent, which is often hybrid finance, isn't it? It's not just a straightforward product or offer. This is a new space to operate in. Let me ask you then a different question altogether, or bring in a different focus. I know that both of you are, and your institutions are focused on sustainability in its fullest sense. Not just about carbon, it's not just about the latest app, it's sustainability fully. And that means encompassing people and society, I mean the world, it's just what happens. You provide finance, but what is the impact? You can't just do it from inside out. And most of us will talk about what are our banks doing as we look out. But it would be very interesting to have from each of you a comment on the perspective from society back in. Why do you need to think holistically when you offer these products and services and capacity building?
Sure, absolutely. So first, I completely agree. So we look at sustainability in its fullest sense, and we believe in a just and fair transition. And what we mean by that is not just looking at the environmental aspects, but also definitely the social and governance aspects. And from a social perspective, that's both looking at the risk side as well as the opportunities in this space, right? So from a risk perspective, looking at human rights and who we bank and how do they embed human rights within their supply chains. And from an opportunities perspective, particularly in these regions, as government are stepping up their socials initiative, how do we help support the capital that's required into those spaces? So I think social finance, is now getting a bit more room in the space of sustainability. Now that environmental finance or green finance is a bit more embedded within institutions. And we've had a lot of dialogue this year across industry on how do we embed further social finance, what's the crossover of social finance and Islamic finance. And I think more is to come on this space, but we've already seen the deal flow that address either the use of proceeds, social aspects of a deal, or even in sustainability-linked loans, embedding social KPIs in the structure.
Thank you. Faisal.
Today, we are here in Abu Dhabi, the capital of capital, as UAE. Why is that? Because when it's not the building or the urban development. It's human centricity. It's the leadership visioning that the human factor is the pillar of development, and at the same time, prosperity towards a sustainable future. If we look at this and we address that UAE is having 5 cities among the safest 10 cities worldwide, safety, public safety and acknowledgement and open dialogue with the government and the leadership is a model to other countries and cities. Preventing crime and addressing underprivileged families' requirement is a key for a sustainable future. The human centricity in the UAE is a model to be copied elsewhere. Otherwise, the rich will be richer, and the poor will be poorer, and the crime rates will increase. Being as a police officer, as you mentioned earlier, reflect that the necessity of well-being and addressing crime rate is a very important pillar in the UAE to prosper and develop further. And I believe the $7 trillion growing 20% from 2022 to 2023 is a cornerstone in the Falcon Economy Accelerator to attract more sustainable funds and finance to the UAE.
Thank you. Obviously, a lot of passion in that response, so thank you very much for that. You're both really busy. Your institutions are in there. You've really distinguished institutions with great track records. Jennifer, what's your biggest achievement in this space for 2024? Quickly, because I'm going to ask a follow.
Yes, absolutely. We've had so many achievements this year. Very proud of our team and our institution. But I think what stands out this year for us is the number of firsts. We have a first sustainable improvement loan that's in partnership with EcoVadis for mid-market clients. We've had our first sustainable finance loan in Algeria. We've had our first receivable finance sustainability-linked transaction. We've had our first sustainable finance cross-border structure. So the number of firsts has just increased, and that just shows the momentum that we're on.
That's brilliant. What's the big challenge in front of you right now for 2025?
The challenge is we really want to see the momentum continue. We've had the last 2 COPs. We've had this year as being the sustainability year. What comes next, right? We're about to see regulation, as was mentioned, coming into play in the UAE, but we really want to make sure that that momentum stays. There's a fear of momentum dropping because we've been on such a high in the last few years. So my fear is that that gets taken away, but I don't think that will happen. I think we have the right momentum.
Good, thank you. Same 2 questions to you, Faisal, 2024.
Sure. We are one of few national banks committed to invest 1 trillion dirham in sustainable finance by 2030. And also we initiated a CSR campaign with an impact globally, Climb to Change, collecting waste, plastic waste from the highest peaks of mountain and climbing camps worldwide, starting from Nepal, India, Pakistan, and moving towards Egypt and other countries. I'll give one example. In Pakistan alone, with higher than 12,000 feet, we managed to collect more than 1.78 tons of plastic waste, encouraging micro SMEs to be initiated, underprivileged family to be engaged, showing that sustainability can work and will become profitable. In addition, our initiative, UAE ESG and Sustainable Finance Ecosystem Accelerator, where we are building capacity and engaging with government entities like MOCA and others in accelerating the journey toward a sustainable future in the UAE, is something that I'm proud of and I look forward to develop further.
That's brilliant. 2025, one big challenge that you see?
Evolving subsidies and transforming them into tax rebate and other things to ensure profitability and to have a carrot beside the stick to enable the willingness of the transition and the transformational sustainable project.
Thank you very much. Let me just summarize the panel. Really, despite the urgency of climate and sustainability, despite the new products and services and brilliant work that banks like both of you or yours are doing, the demand isn't always there, the understanding isn't always there, the door isn't always open. So banks need to keep working in 2 ways. One, you have to help create the market for this as well as serve the market. And the other is that you need to really understand the consequences for society more widely. Can I ask you to thank my 2 wonderful panelists?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shukran.